Well now, new P-38 variants, the P-38E and the P-38K finally announced officially for War Thunder. Well, it's about goddamn time. G'day ladies and gents, and welcome to War Thunder with Mags, and welcome aboard the XP-38G, the plane that does not exist. Yeah, I'm getting a little bit of deja vu with this video, to be honest. I made a video on the XP-38G talking about an announced comment that came from Gaijin about the P-38K about a year ago, and it's only taken them a year to finally get around to confirming that comment and displaying an image of the aircraft, but better late than never. So today's video we're going to be taking to the skies of New Guinea for 2 matches. Now this map is generally hated by Allied forces, mainly because the Allied aircraft start on the runway inland of New Guinea and have to climb for altitude. Meanwhile the Japanese aircraft start with an air spawn and generally are equipped with aircraft that have a higher climb rate than the Americans in the first place. Now that doesn't mean you can't take altitude on the Japanese aircraft, it just requires a little bit of time and patience to get yourself into position. So I'm beginning my engagement with the first aircraft of this match. It's the dreaded J2M2. This plane is ridiculously powerful for its battle rating, however it's not impossible to beat it. The trick to remember is once it gets up to a certain speed, its manoeuvrability is severely sacrificed. It suffers some severe control stiffening. So if you can get it in a very sharp dive, if it has altitude on you, and then roll over and get it to overshoot, it's fairly easy to stay on its tail and take your first kill. Now I had quite a lot of speed out of the dive pursuing the J2M2. As soon as the target was eliminated, immediately pull back on the stick, put the nose into the sky and get altitude before reinitiating a dive on the next target. Don't stay on the deck at any time. American aircraft rely on the ability to dive at targets in order to generate speed and intercept and destroy them. If you have no altitude, if you're down on the deck, you are just a target. This is one of the biggest mistakes that American pilots make, and they make it in almost every American aircraft. The feeling amongst American pilots is if you cannot outclimb your enemy, there's no point in climbing at all, and this is just blatantly untrue. American aircraft require at least having some altitude underneath them in order to be able to generate those dives, to generate that energy and speed. As you can see, I wasn't particularly high here at an A6M3 dropping on my tail, and it was moving quite fast, but I was able to just gently drop the nose for a little bit, accelerate the plane, and then use my energy to outrun the Zero, opening a gap until it broke off. This bought me a window to allow me to retake altitude, which is what I'm doing now, roll the plane over and reinitiate a dive on the target that was just on my 6. Now if I'd been down on the deck just brushing the treetops, I wouldn't have been able to put the nose down to accelerate the aircraft, in which case that Zero would have caught me and would have killed me. You don't need to be 20,000 feet above the enemy. You only need to be high enough off the ground that you can utilize the energy capabilities of your aircraft. Once you have that, you take kills. Kill number 2. Now once again, having taken this Zero, point the nose straight in the air, I've got a Ki-43 coming in from my right hand side. Now these things climb incredibly well, but with the speed I have on out of my last dive, once again I'll be able to take altitude on it, reposition myself to dive through. Unfortunately, I didn't see this Ki-61 coming, and he does a beautiful ambush, cripples my aircraft. And that was beautifully done on his behalf. I never saw him coming. Now I immediately throw the aircraft into a tight right. I'm hoping that he will overshoot trying to maneuver, but he's smart. He's taken the aircraft straight into the vertical, and he's doing to me what I have just done to his teammates. The Ki-43 comes around to take a crack at my wounded bird, but I shoot it in the face to discourage it. Unfortunately, the Ki-61 is making its move now, hits me and lights me on fire, and then zooms through. But I'm sorry Ki-61, that was a really well executed attack, but if I'm going down, you're going down with me. And that's my 3rd kill of the match. And of course the end of this battle. But that was an extremely well executed attack by God of Sky. Look forward to seeing you in the sky again, mate. So, round 2, and once again back to the skies of New Guinea. I started the match with a sharp, high-angled climb to the southeast towards the mountains on the New Guinea map, took it out to 12,500 feet, dropped back the engines just to cool them off a little bit. They did overheat a little during the climb, and then began my turn back towards the battle. Now if you check my fuel count, this has only taken me about 6 minutes from the time I took off from the runway. I carry 45 minutes, or the minimum fuel load in the XP-38G when I go into combat, and I only began my turn back towards the battlefield after scanning the sky of dots, working out all the dots were at about 11,000 to 12,000 feet for the enemy team, and then began making my move back in. If I'd seen dots higher, I would have continued climbing away from the battle until I hit about 15,000 before making my turn. At that point, it's generally pretty safe that the Japanese forces would have begun their dives on your teammates. It sounds kind of mercenary, but if you're going to fly low, I'm going to use you as bait. So my first target has come up. We've got a G4 M1 at altitude with two A6 M2s just behind it. So I'm going to engage the Betty first. Just pass in, off angle, light the engines on fire, nice and clean. Turn over immediately to engage the first A6 M2. Now I don't have a lot of altitude on it here for a dive, but I'm going to take some quickly, then tip it over and dive on top of it. Unfortunately, I do mess it up a little bit here, and this is going to make the rest of this match a lot more difficult than it needs to be. Dive vertical on the A6 M2, but I aim poorly, he doesn't. Good hit to my left wing. Don't turn back, immediately move on the second A6 M2, take the lead, fire the shots, set him on fire. There's my second kill of the match. Out to level flight, open up the throttles, onto WEP, clear a gap. When that A6 M2 comes back around, I'm not going to be there to engage. Now a second P-38G was in the area to engage that zero, and a P-40 was en route. That's caused the A6 M2 to start dropping altitude, so at this point I'll begin turning the plane back and start positioning myself to dive and finish off the A6 M2. Now at this point I'm just taking a few moments to check the manoeuvrability of the aircraft. It is not great, it is listing heavily, it is not controlling as well in turns as I would like. But that's all the time I have to check the aircraft. I've got a J2 M2 coming up from underneath to try and spike me, turn back sharply on it and loop underneath. Continue the right bank slightly, I want to make sure it forms up on my 6 before taking the XP-38G into the vertical. Straight up over the top, combat flaps enabled, I'm going to loop this thing right over and dive straight on top of him. Throttle back to tighten up the turn, let gravity bring the nose around, take the lead, solid hits, close pass and set him on fire, and that's my third kill of the match. Quickly level the plane to the horizon and just open up the throttles on the off chance that that fire doesn't finish the job, but looking at the plane, it's pretty much a guaranteed kill at this point, and there it is. So once again, start taking altitude and slowly bring the plane around on a right bank. The last time I looked, that A6 M2 was still alive. A quick shoulder check, however, shows that the P-38 and the P-40 together have taken out the A6 M2, so that's him out of the match as well, and at the moment, skies are clear. We can't see any additional targets. Unfortunately, I'm looking at that left wing now. The plane is incredibly hard to control at the moment. My left engine has got damage. I'm looking at the temperatures at the moment and they're not cooling down as much as I would like them to, and I strongly suspect the left engine isn't going to cool down at all. It's probably going to fail. So at this point, I'm bringing the plane back around. I'm going to RTB. I really don't have a choice. I can't fight on one engine. Or at least that was the plan. Just off to my left-hand side for a split second, I got a glimpse of a red box. I didn't see for long enough exactly what the target was, but it tells me that there is a target over there. I can't afford to head in that direction and engage straight away, however, so I'm going to head straight towards the runway first, but I am keeping a good look in that direction, and there it is. The red box has popped back up. It's another A6M. It's heading in towards the runway. It's going to try and strafe targets. It's flying at low altitude to try and avoid detection. Now I need to land, but I can't afford to land while it's heading in towards the runway, so I'm going to take it out first. Sharp dive, just keep the throttles on 100%, no need to WEP. I've got altitude to burn here. A6M pulls back underneath, pulls straight into my guns, pull the trigger, set it on fire, and I'm pretty sure that's going to be kill number 4. I can't afford to turn back with it with this damage, so I just check over my shoulder, make sure it's going down. Critical strike off the fire. Yeah, this is going to be fatal. That A6M2 is not making it back to base. And there's the kill notification. Kill number 4 for the match. Now at this point, this match is pretty much over. The remaining 2 aircraft on the enemy team just showed up at altitude. The first one got taken out. The final A6M on the enemy team is being engaged by a P-38G and a P-47. At this point, this match is over and won. In fact, that A6M is going to be taken out before I even make it to the runway. So let's go through to the results. So, first place for the team with 4 kills, Ground Forces Rescuer, Multi-Strike X2, Avenger, Professional X3, Shadow Strike Streak X2, Wind Streak X2, Terror of the Sky, and Bulletproof. 108,900 Silver Lions, and we came in with 6,392 research points. No aircraft research at this time, so that's base research with no modifiers. So not a bad match overall, and you'll notice in that last match, part of the reason why the Allied forces in that map had such a good success was a large amount of the American pilots were off the deck. They were at altitude, they were engaging the Zeros at around 12,000 feet to 10,000 feet at the start of the match. They had enough altitude to be able to utilise the capabilities of their aircraft, and as such they are able to turn the tide around and wipe out the enemy team, despite them having faster climbing aircraft and an altitude advantage at the start of the match. Now, I'm not saying I like the setup for the New Guinea map. In fact, I don't like the setup for the New Guinea map at all. All I'm saying is it's not impossible for Allied forces to win on that map, but you're not going to win if you're trimming the trees at 500 feet, while the Japanese are cruising in at 10,000 feet. But regardless, the P-38 series, I love these planes. I love them in real life, I love them in War Thunder. I am ecstatic to hear we are finally getting 2 more. I think the selection is a little bit odd. I would have expected the L to be involved in there somewhere rather than just the E and K, but hey, the K is a good plane, the E is a good plane. I'm sure the L will show up eventually. Anyways, ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed the video. Click like if you do, subscribe if you want to see more. Fly smart, fly safe, and I'll catch you in the skies.